Welcome to the Rational Growth Experience, where every week we talk about how concepts from personal growth and spirituality come together and are experienced in our everyday lives.
All right, let's do it. Episode
Got
9. Woo!
Yeah, episode 9. So let's just jump into it, man. I mean, how was your week? What's going on? What's new?
Good so far. I think this week's a little interesting. So, 2 days ago or yesterday, there's something I've been working on, which is called the Gene Keys, which is kind of like focusing. The premise behind it is it talks a little bit about like the date you were like the date and time and place you were born, and based on that, like the genetic DNA and such that's linked to your hologenic profile or something like that. But anyways, they
Oh,
they offer um, like different courses based on your profile, which is really interesting. And so I've just been diving into that, and I don't know, it's as of 2 days ago, it's so interesting because it was one of those things that when I first was reading it, it was super resonant, which was kind of weird because it was almost like to a T. Talked a little bit about me and who I am. And so I was like, okay, this is bizarre. I was like, I've never heard of this before, but let's give it a shot, Probably could learn something. And in particular, the past like week or two, relationships have been coming up for whatever reason. And I don't know what I'm supposed to learn from it, but part of the second I guess introduction into the chart talks about relationships, and predominantly it's like the relationship with self, but it will talk about relationships with others. And so I've just dove into that, and that has been very interesting because it was one of those things where I recently got out of a relationship like not too long ago, and so now like, and I still kind of thought everything was good, but there's a part of me that knows there's something else that I need to be like have a different takeaway from all of this. And so diving into that is new. And so yesterday when I
right.
first started it, like there's like a book, there's a corresponding book, there's obviously your Gene Keys profile, which tells you a lot. There's a book, and then there's audio and like a little webinar thing. So it's like there's steps, and you're supposed to read like read a certain chapter and then listen to the audio, and then research chapter, watch the webinar, listen to the audio, and then you're supposed to contemplate on it, which is similar to meditation, but it's a little bit different. And the idea of contemplation is kind of interesting because it's not quite as passive as meditation, where meditation is getting beyond like your mind and body, whereas um, con- contemplation is like using your mind to focus on a singular topic, and also like kind of like slowing your brain down to allow like things to come to you, which is really cool.
Mm,
And so I've been just kind of playing with that the past couple days, and it's been interesting. And I feel like more recently there's a big, I think I've been tested a lot the past couple of weeks, or this past week in particular. From on Friday, when a good friend of mine forgot I'm in real estate somehow. I don't know. Forgot how I was in real estate after calling me to ask about my lender. So, and then not getting me onto the new build contract. So that's about a ten to $12,000 loss. It's because he forgot and he didn't think that I could be on there, which that makes sense. Some people don't know real estate agents can be on new development contracts. So that was a test in and of itself. And then today, um, with the job, it was it was like everything that could go kind of wrong went wrong. Like the elevator broke when we were trying to load the storage unit, and there's some really heavy items, and the stairwell was hot as fuck because it was one of those emergency exits,
oh,
and then one of the guys was just like, "Oh, I don't want to do this. I'm so lazy." Blah blah blah. And when things get harder, I just kind of buckle down, and I double down, and I'm like, "Let's get this shit done." And so I'm getting in this like, all right, let's get this done. Let's stop bitching about it. Let's go. mentality, and then he's kind of like meh, like, you know, slacking off, and then like kind of poking the bear because I'm like subtly, like that energy of like, dude, you need to shut the fuck up and get this done is there, you know. And so
Right.
it's kind of funny for that. And then like playing with like having that like sort of like negative energy, like, dude, just quit bitching, quit poking me, and like quit making fun of whatever's going on, then let's just get it done. And really just sitting with it and not reacting out of it, but letting it just kind of be there. So if there's anything that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit today was what it's like being in flow and what that even means, or like being in the natural state of things. And I'm going to use the moving example today as a good example, just because I'm sure there's going to be there, and there's other things I can use as examples, but yeah, I want to talk about that and how that's a thing, because I don't know, I think there's some confusion, at least for me, there's a confusion for the longest time of like what that means to be in flow and what's
Well,
like the natural.
there's a lot of interesting things that you just talked about. Like, I mean, because the first one that I kind of want to learn more about is also the relationship portion. So let's talk about this kind of being in the state of flow, because kind of what that just resonates to me is because I've had similar instances, like with the real estate deals. I've been in those roller coasters and just went at a, how would I explain it? Like, you know, the roller coaster, just that momentum going all the way up, and then shit hits the fan, and you're just going all the way down, and it's very intense sometimes because you're just trying to process and figure out everything, but also rationalize how you can create that solution for this whatever's going on right now, and being in that sense of flow to just be able to stay at peace within yourself, like everything external, just letting it happen, kind of similar to what's going on with the dude who's being a lazy ass and not wanting to carry the fucking thing up the damn
Yeah,
stairs. I
yeah.
mean, it doesn't make sense, man. Like at the end of the day, once you get that done, then it's all happiness. So I hear you on that, man. And I know that, for instance, because we're kind of tying into that real estate deal that kind of happened to me, because yeah, man, I hear you on losing 10, 15 grand on real estate deals, and it sucks ass because you're expecting that money. One thing that the consumer doesn't know about real estate agents is that we don't get paid till we actually get those closings. So if they get terminated, we're shit out of luck. But kind of tying that back into this is that it's crazy on how this kind of goes with the whole real estate deals, and putting you and really testing you in some instances about how to stay calm and not let those externals really get to you in your mentality. So, I mean, how is it still resonating with you? Because I know with me, sometimes I overthink these issues and see how I can figure out those solutions once this passed. So how is that for you? Like, are
Which
you
part?
still dealing with those? Are you still dealing with those issues, or
Are you saying like mindset issues in terms of like understanding that it's like that's just kind of a pain?
right,
Is that
right?
what you're saying?
Yeah, like,
So this is what I think is interesting, because this is where I kind of feel I'm in this transition phase. Um, Obviously, yes. Do I get annoyed at some things? Of course. There are some things that just drive me nuts. Like the thing today, I was getting pretty annoyed with the kid, but I was like, he is who he is. I was like, that's just kind of the way it is, and it's beautiful, and it's like, so it was really funny when I'm sitting here getting annoyed with this kid, where I'm like, I just want to go home. I'm ready to leave, and I was like, that's very selfish, you know, like I'm just trying to leave. I want to go home. Yes, this sucks, but I just want to be done. And so because I'm in this like more selfish mindset, I'm not thinking about the task at hand as much, which is, you know, I'm helping someone move, which is in a sense very generous. But I mean, yes, we're getting paid and whatever, but it's like, when it was funny while this was all happening, it was like I could observe and I could like feel like myself get all like annoyed and maybe even angry, and like I could feel like the doubling down setting in, like my hands like getting tighter, and like um and just wanting to finish the job. And then I'm like, watching it all. I'm not really reacting out of it because there's times where I just wanted to like get in the dude's face and be like, let's fucking get this done. But I was like, it was weird. It's hard for me to explain this because it's so, it just all happens inside of us. It's like I can feel the emotions, I can hear the thoughts, I can feel the thoughts and the intention running through my body, but I'm not acting upon it. And I think that's what's so interesting now is being almost in like a constant state of meditation in a way, because I think meditation, all it is just awareness of self and awareness of your thoughts. And so it's so weird now where, you know, when I was first starting all of this, I would use any sort of emotional, anytime I had an emotion, I would like self audit and be like, what's that about? And now, or then, and then want to like shift out of it. Or like it would just happen, whatever happened. I would maybe blow up or whatever, because I used to be kind of a hothead, you know, so like I'd get really angry or whatever, or really upset or whatever it was. And then like half an hour, maybe even a day or two later, I would be like, that was shitty of me. I shouldn't do that. Or even months later, you know, in like really subtler cases of maybe parts that I'm not ready to accept about myself. And so now it's like I can see it, I can feel it come up before it's even happening. I can just feel it kind of like stirring in me and wanting to like move and like, and it's different because it's like I acknowledge that it's there, which is new. Before I'd kind of be like, oh, why am I having this thought? I don't like having this thought. And then I would be in like a double worse scenario because it's like I'd be reacting, but then I'd be beating myself up because I'm reacting and I'm like, I don't want to be human, blah, you know, hate emotions. But now it's like, no, I acknowledge that that's there. That's totally cool. Just take a deep breath and just keep going. It's okay. And it was interesting because like now that it's so quick, it just feels so weird. And it's like I can be in what I call flow, where it's like you're just kind of in the natural rhythm of things. And it's like part of that, I mean, the natural rhythm of today is things were going wrong at the job, people were getting frustrated, customers getting frustrated, and it's like everyone's getting frustrated because of a simple job, but that's the natural flow of things. And it's like when you're in it, you can even though it's easy to get overwhelmed by your emotions in the heat of the moment in almost any scenario, you know, like fight with a significant other, or you're working on a project that's not going well, or real estate where you're losing money, or whatever job where your boss is pissing you off, or whatever it may be. And so in this instance, it was just the job, and I was like kind of in the natural flow of things, but I was like, I basically what I told myself was I was like, I'm not going to let this a couple boxes and a change of scenario change my state. That's literally what I told myself. I was like, I'm not going to let this change my state. I was like, I'm still getting paid. I was like, I'm just glad to have a job. I was like, this is really cool. And I was like, yes, does it suck having to go around? Sure. But it's like you decide how you're going to react to it. And so I decided, no, it's perfectly cool. This is just kind of ebbs and flows of things like this. It's not a big deal. Let's get it done. And that was that. There wasn't anything like, and then I came home and passed out because I was so tired. But that's kind of the flow of things in that instance. And then there's other times where, and I think that's what I like to call, like, yeah, like what I said, flow, where you're going with whatever's happening. You're not really judging it too much. You're not judging yourself. You're just with it. And that's it.
Yeah.
And so that's been kind of cool.
No, that is really cool. And especially that takes a lot of self-control to be able to catch yourself and being aware of like those emotions. And that's why humans are so fucking intelligent, because we have those types of emotions. And you know, but anyways, I feel the same way that when I'm cold calling or calling expires, because I always get those clients who are fucking pissed off, like, why the fuck are you calling me at 9 a.m? Like, fuck off, I'm not trying to sell. And it really tests me too, because I'm just trying to figure out like, okay, well, I have to understand, and this is something that I actually learned from Buy and Sell, like I have to be in their shoes and their perspective. They didn't get to sell their home. They lost out on their goals, and that's why they're such in a pissed off state and reactive state. And it's interesting for me because I'm still trying to digest that and understand how to not be so judgmental towards others in that sense, or at least comprehend on how or why they're acting that sort of way. And dude, it's been testing me. It's been testing me.
Well, I mean, if there's anything that I think about is it just takes an extreme amount of empathy. And I do mean extreme. At least at first it'll seem extreme, you know, because it's like, and maybe this is where you and I are a little different because I've always just been able to kind of like feel and like kind of understand what someone's going through or like what they're feeling. And so it's easier for me to empathize, which is why John says like I always have felt like I've always had like a kind heart to you, you know. I don't know if you've heard him say that, but he says that a lot. Um and so it's not, for me it's not too hard, but what I do typically is like, yes, so, and I think this is just kind of the flow of it. You first have to acknowledge yourself because it's like when you acknowledge what you're feeling, it's easier to acknowledge someone else's feelings. Or if you can't acknowledge yourself, go just try to acknowledge them. Just like what he says, put yourself in their shoes. Like truly be like, okay, I'm a real estate agent calling this person at 9 in the morning. And similar to what he said, like, they didn't get to sell their house. They probably lost out on their dreams. They're probably frustrated at a part of that too. But I think the most immediate thing is it's 9 in the morning. They're getting a sales call. What if it's 9 in the morning and you're getting a sales call? How would you react? Ask yourself like the same question, or like, and then be like, okay, I just had this house, like the house you live in. Just say like, oh, I own this house and I couldn't sell it for whatever reason, and now I'm getting a sales call every morning at 9 a.m. That's pretty
Now,
easy for me. That's pretty easy situation to put myself in and say, okay, I totally get it. And then it's like, how do you finagle yourself out of that? And then that's where like I've also had a lot of empathy in terms of like today. I was like, okay, like when the dude was being annoying, I was like, what part of this is bothering me? I was like, well, he's being lazy and it's kind of impacting all of us just because he's not wanting to double down and finish the job. He'd rather complain and drag and piss the customer off more. And I'm like, well, let me put myself in his shoes. This is really hard, obviously, in the moment, but I'm like, let me put myself in his shoes. I'm like, and obviously you kind of have to analyze someone off the surface if you don't know them too much, but you have to be like, okay, I know limited information, which is, okay, this kid, he's 19, 20, he probably still lives at home. All he does is kind of smoke weed and he works, and this is his life. I was like, he probably doesn't study any sort of like personal growth things, or maybe he does, who knows, but this is his current reality, is like easy jobs, I like playing video games, I like smoking weed, whatever it is. And then I'm like, so of course a little subtle change in a job where it was fairly straightforward from the get-go is going to piss him off. I was like, this isn't his normal flow. And I was like, makes sense. And then I was like, all right. I was like, now what's my issue? I'm like, clearly, like, I have an issue with him having an issue, you know?
right.
Like, what's that all about? And so I'm like, well, I'm just trying to leave. I don't want to be bothered. I'd like to be tipped too, you know, because it's like sometimes when these things happen, customers get mad, then they don't want to tip you. And it's like,
And well,
it's kind of shitty
negativity
for
is
everyone.
contagious. Negativity is
Yeah.
contagious, and so is positivity. I mean, it goes both ways. But it's. I feel that that's very interesting that you pointed it out in that manner, because I do have those intentions when I'm back to what the cold calling scenario, calling that pissed off seller. I go with the intention of wanting to help, and I've always been that type of person. So me knowing like I'm very trustworthy type of person, that I'm like, all right, let's
Yeah.
get this done. And then when someone fucking tells me to fuck off, and that's where I'm like, wait, but what? I'm trying to help you, you know?
Well,
And then
that's an interesting topic, the whole helping thing.
mhm. Yeah.
Even if you're, and this is what's funny, it's like even if your intentions are the most pure, it's
Mhm.
like you're even though you're trying to benefit someone else, like you're working to help with someone else, it's not your decision, which is what's kind of weird, because it's like you can give them and educate them and do everything in your power to like shine that light through to show them your intention, but you can't make the decision for them if they're going to accept it. And that's the way it is, and that's kind of the way, and that's what's cool about, I guess, the way we live. Like everyone has, freedom of choice or free will, you might say. Is it frustrating because it doesn't go according to the plan maybe you had in your head? Fuck yeah, I'm sure. It gets annoying. It's like you have this idea like, oh, I'm going to call this person, we're going to crush it, going to get the listing, we're going to go, it's going to be amazing. But it's like you still kind of forget the aspect of life, which is can't entirely choose what's going to happen. I mean, I believe like in creation of your reality and choosing every step of the way and like all that, but there's also like you got to remember there's other people that are also creating and choosing their own step of the way, and it doesn't always line up all the time. And so, and that's kind of touching into like the relationships aspect of just two different people and how they come together and all that, which I think I'd like to talk about at some point.
Let's jump into it right now then.
When I dive a little bit more into this and have some more thoughts. But yeah, in that instance, I'm like, dude, we're all creators. I was like, yeah, there's things, and this is the problem I have with like NLP stuff and social dynamic stuff is, and then adding this like personal growth and all that stuff. I think the NLP and for example, or say like social dynamic stuff, it's like you can learn so much. Same with sales. It's like you can learn so much, like have the right words to say, have the right framework. You're walking everyone through step by step through the process. You're increasing your energy. You're saying it in the right tonality. You're like finessing your way through a conversation essentially. And it's like you can do everything to a T, but it's like there's still another human being on the other end. It's like, yes, do these things help with your chances of getting someone to do what you'd like them to do? 100%. Seen it up person. I've done it. I know it works. But it's like it only goes so far,
Yeah.
And it's like at some point you have to just acknowledge like where do I draw the line with this? Because it's like I think we get so caught up in this I'm going to get the deal. I'm going to get the deal. I'm going to get the deal. Like killer sales mentality where you're like, I'm going to do it until no matter what. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. And that's perfectly okay to do that. Like perfectly okay. But it's like, you gotta teeter the line of withdrawing entirely and then continuing to push because like Brian says, everyone has like this deep inner part of them that wants to express and like do all these things, but they're conditioned into a certain way, and so they don't want to express it as much. And so having this information, that they want to do that, and it's like amazing. So it's like, how do you get them to choose that? And it's like, well, you can inch them closer, but ultimately, it's their decision. It's not your decision, and so that's where it's like you have to have the other side, which is the personal development, the personal growth of yourself, because it's like, well, what am I attaching so much to this situation and getting this to work out that is going to make me feel a certain way if I don't get it to work out?
Right.
And that's where I think like the whole flow of things and like personal growth and meditation, all that comes into play where you're working on yourself so much where say a subtle annoying thing or whatever comes up, it's no longer annoying to you. You're just like, oh, this is just kind of the way things flow. This person's deciding, I'm doing part, that's all I can do. And you're not taking on that because it's not yours to take on. And so then you're still being over here in like your personal like growth world and everything's good, and you're not like taking on other people's, I guess, energies or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And then in some sense, like going to that topic of, it's not my decision to, get that outcome that I want. So that's something that I'm learning to not be so attached to that outcome of said, like when I call, the intentions will be a little bit shifting into a different direction because I'm not so attached to it where it's going to affect me internally. But then back to that as well is like, okay, well, building that bridge and creating that emotional connection with that individual does give you an edge over the other people who are also calling. Because that's happened to me so many times. I'm just in some sense really good with the first interaction that kind of shines me over the other realtors, which is pretty cool, I would say. And that's more of like a relationship topic, I would say. So I'm going to leave that. But no, that's really cool on, you know, how you have been in flow and really not getting the external chatter letting you affect you inside, which I really think that's really cool. And I know that that's something that I'm still getting used to, because my external, or more of me controlling my thoughts, is the gym, and that's where I've been habitually attached to as well. So all this is very new to me as well, in not letting an external thing affect what's going on in my head.
And going back to something you briefly said, like, your intention can stay the same. It's just the reliant on the outcome. They're different, you know, because it's like what you said, you're good at the first meeting. That's amazing. But if your intention is, I'm going to be, only when I get this to work am I happy, then it's not good, you know? And it's like, you can still have the same intention, like, oh, I'm here to help you. But it's like, if you're also like, hey, I'm here to help you, and I also don't care if you're a dick to me, then you win, you know? Because it's like, then it's like, no matter what happens, like, you understand, like, I'm here to serve others, and that's perfectly cool. But I'm also like not gonna be afraid if you don't want me to help you, or not gonna be upset if you don't want me. That's okay too. And so, like, I think that's where it gets maybe a little confusing. Is sometimes, at least I know I experience this. I was like, it's either one way or the other, you know. Like, I'm either have this intention or I don't, and it's like, no, that's not the case at all. Like, like something like that Brian was talking about. Like, we live in a duality, like a dual world. Like, yes, there are both extremes, but you don't need to just go one way or the other. It's similar to the, you know, pendulum. It comes back to rest in the center. So yes, maybe do you have to hop to the other extreme to learn, to then come back and then slowly, sure, yes, that's exactly how I learned, because that's how I was very extreme one way or the other kind of mentality. But now, as the pendulum's slowing down, I'm finding the middle and understanding, like, oh, both are perfectly okay. I can see the pros and cons to both. Now let's find my middle ground, because I've experienced both, you know. And so like, keep your intentions. I'm not saying to ditch your intentions. I'm just saying acknowledge the part in yourself that's not allowing you to accept that other part of it, you know, the other extreme. And that's where I think the answer always lies, is I firmly believe that there's always something in us that's not liking maybe the other extreme. And so we're, in a sense, causing our own suffering in each situation, because we're not acknowledging the other standpoint, because it doesn't fit this model that we've created in our head. And maybe that's about us or about people or whatever. And so.
And here's a very interesting, now that we're talking about this goes back into the frame of reference, because I've always been used to sellers being, in some sense, dicks, you know? So I get that when I'm getting ready to call, I'm like, all right, well, let's hope I don't get another fucking dick, because I'm sick and tired of all these dick sellers. So then that's where my, you know, my energy that I guess that I'm putting out is just going back to that frame of reference, and that's where it's I'm still needing to feel the other extreme, if that makes sense. If that makes sense.
Like, experience the other extreme of, like, having a really nice seller.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
then at that point, I think that I'd be able to find that middle ground, to see, like, okay, well, shit, hey, maybe sellers aren't that bad, and they're not dicks all the time, but it's I have to understand their perspective from when I first call.
You said it. It's understanding their perspective. If you can empathize with someone, it's really easy. It's easier to navigate the conversation and navigate that scenario, because it's kind of like a hot girl at a bar. All the dudes are going to come up and hit on her, so of course she's going to have her guard up. A for
Yeah.
sale by owner, all the
Yeah.
agents are going to call them and trying to get their business, so they're going to have their guard up. So you just kind of have to understand that that's where they're coming from. So
Yep, and I
how
understand
do you,
about the whole bar too, and that's happened to me as well. So, but
and so now it's just practice. That's all it really is.
and yeah, no, to the listener, I hope that this kind of makes sense, and we're kind of just talking about it and explaining it in a way that hopefully is practical to you guys, so you guys understand what's going on in that flow that you're going through, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, because there's a lot of underlying principles going on in every conversation, which is where it's almost overwhelming, even with growth, like personal growth. Like there's so many different ways to learn, or like meditation, and even
Mm-hmm.
what we're talking about. And so, at least the standpoint I come from, or we come from, is we try to talk about, okay, these bigger topics and chunk them down in smaller situations so that you can see that bigger picture that we're talking about and how it arises in these smaller situations. Because a lot of the time, these principles, I hate to say, are always at play. They're always at play.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you understand them, then it's easier for yourself to grow and overcome something that maybe you weren't able to before. And so that's all we talk about, is just that. And so hopefully we're breaking it down. I never know. Like I
Mm-hmm.
try to do to the best of our abilities, and I think it resonates, but definitely would love some feedback.
Right.
But
We definitely need more activity on the YouTube platform. We need comments. We need to know if you guys are liking this. Like, I don't know if my parents or whoever the fuck is watching. We need comments to figure out if this is something that's understanding. We just want to make sure that you guys understand what we're talking about and if it makes sense. And next week's episode is going to be or last week's episode, because this is going after.
yeah, we're a week ahead.
Yeah, we're starting to implement guests, and it's going to be really cool with the guests that we are bringing. Is your guest going to be coming on?
Yeah,
Nice.
so we got obviously we got Brian Casella coming on next week, or last week. And now this week we talked about this, and then next week got a friend of mine. He was actually a teacher. I went to yoga teacher training in Bali, and he was one of the instructors. He's from India, younger, also entrepreneur, but also like kind of mystic, yogi person. Very interesting dude. So we're gonna get a lot of different dynamics on here to give you all different perspectives that maybe you can relate to one more than the other, and just kind of understand. And I think the goal with all of that is showing that no matter what you kind of decide to do, there are underlying principles that are pretty much the same throughout all of them.
Universal.
And I hope that's something you guys can pick up on, because it's really cool when you start piecing that big puzzle together. You're like, oh shit, like this is the same as this, and this guy, even though he explains it differently, it's talking about the same thing that this guy's talking about, and that's really cool. And so when that happens, it's like a big aha. And so hopefully we'll give you more reference points to give more aha moments, and I guess we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, so on that topic, episode 9 is done. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, because we need them.
Yeah, it really helps a lot. It really does help out a lot. And if we can impact one person, that's amazing. And obviously, if your comment gets a little attention, we can maybe impact someone else that needs it. So hope you guys have a great day.
Yeah. All righty.